Well, hello there, everyone. Here to show you the SAP PDF. It's like a document, like the calling activity right here, and basically it's like a document to where that for any signatures and autographs, plus is like information that more like it is like to be provided in, and a lot of this I'm sure that besides if it's going to be maybe workers or if employees. Employees at a company, or if it's going to be students or anything like that. I'm like, any customers, is that if it's going to be anything that's related to business or maybe clients or anybody like that. But just knowing about, I'm like, yeah, you're talking about like here is talking about with signatures though, that signatures and autographs and basically that for like plus is that knowing if I'm sure most of us have had our experience that after we turn around the age of 18 or older, that a lot of times nowadays with the rules to where that have it to where that if anybody any teenagers that whenever they're 16, 17 going on 18 that they may have had their experience to where that whenever they were younger that they may have had to where that I'm like that they look forward to getting something in the mail, and the next thing you know it's like it could be like maybe that back the story from where it goes by that for anything such as whenever we're younger that we enjoy getting something in the mail or getting something maybe from if it's from the teacher or from somebody that a relative, a family relative, or maybe a friend or something like that that more likely that it's like it could be like a greeting card or something like that, or maybe like a little journal. I'm like if you had gotten something in the mail that was from a friend or somebody, but and which like knowing about, I'm like for SAP is that for file that the story that I'm talking about right here. The story I'm talking about right here is talking about like signatures though that I'm sure most of us have had our experience to where that with signatures that if we were to be completing the form if it's related to taxes or if it's maybe attending a meeting or something like that a lot of times that I kept thinking, I'm like with most signatures and autographs plus is that if we would be working on something and the next thing you know it's like we sign a form and then all of a sudden I'm like that back whenever we were younger that it's like, well, what's that? I'm like if most of us can't remember whenever we were introduced to something, or maybe our first experience with something such as that for if it's going to be registered voter, or if it's going to be paying a bill or anything like that knowing about that it's like that they say ask you to sign a date something, but which I know that a lot of times with most of these autographs, so is like if it's going to be an autograph or a signature that the thing about the part of the story is that if most of us can remember that I'm like, which this part right here, what happened to from my story is that I can remember a lot of times on the weekends, especially that I go out to the mailbox and check to see if I had gotten anything special in the mail, and one of those things could have been it could have been something such as maybe a birthday card, or maybe a greeting card, or maybe something from a friend or something like that. So in a lot of ways that I'm like whenever any kids who are younger than the age of 15, if they go out and check the mail and they may see they may be thinking that that they got a greeting card or maybe a letter from a grandparent or something like that, or maybe from a friend or something like that, and then the next thing you know it's like that they it's like that there's mail, there's the electric bill or the telephone bill or something like that. So it's like that knowing about, I'm like that for like say with mail though that guy right here's the question to where has mail always been a nightmare, to where what I'm talking about is that we may say, well, it all depends, but I guess like, oh no, not necessarily. Because on your hand that I'm like, that whenever you get mail that there are some good things about mail, and then there are some bad things about mail, and like for like if it's like for depends depending on what you get as well. But on the other hand, that whenever I can remember whenever I was much younger, that I would go out and check the mail, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh hey, there's there's a card or something like that, or a lot of times I can remember that whenever I was much younger, that it seemed like maybe like it was a chore. I don't know, those couple of mornings, like especially on the weekends, I don't know what that was, because I remember going outside a couple of times and then checking the mail, and I don't know if it was a chore or if it was just something that I was looking forward to looking at. Go out, I knew knew where the mailbox was, so I remember hanging out in the front yard a lot of times, from homes from where I grew up at, as well as other places as well, that other homes that we lived at, that we remember going to the mailbox if we I know some of them that even require a key, but whenever I was much younger, that I'm like, if we call it maybe a chore, or if it was just like what you call is like, for whoever that can get to the mailbox on time, we'll be able to check to see, hey, here's a catalog, and a couple of times, if I can remember right, that I don't know if I was checking the mail for any, because I remember I was in the trains a lot of times whenever I was young, and I, of course, still like them, model airplanes and boats and stuff like that. So once or twice, I think whenever I would go check the mail, I would, a lot of times think that there would be like a catalog in there to where that there would be something about that, maybe model trains and airplanes or something like that, and as well as maybe I don't know if about the comic books, the joke part, but there was like any type of catalogs or newspapers, and I could say that if I can remember that it's possible that I went to go check the mail, maybe for a particular reason, and one of those I'm like, that for like at least back whenever I was younger, that I used to say that at least what I can do around the house is, if anything, to check the mail. But other than that, one of the chores around the house was, taking out the trash, and as well as that maybe, cleaning the windows, or maybe vacuuming the floors, something like that. So that I'm sure most of us, were between the age of 10, 11, and 12, or maybe 14, 15 years old, we can remember doing chores around the house. It's like top priorities around the house, especially in our bedrooms. But on the other hand, that knowing about talking about with mail though, and as well as that, another reason for this activity here is talking about is like for that whenever we're in school, that most kids, that whenever we're growing up, it's like growing up, adults that thinking about, I'm like, that back a couple years ago, that usually it was the parents or the guardians, or whichever, that whoever that was handling the situation to where that the documents are not even in the person's name, and that's not what you need to bother with, et cetera, et cetera. So in a lot of ways, I keep wondering that I'm like, that there was once upon a time to where that a few things that were not even in my name, that's like talking about, I'm like, the person speaking, it's like for me, from Matthews, that for anybody, if you're going to be using any type of your printing or signing our names, is that knowing about that, like you say, for following, it's like for 30, like for copyright. But on your hand, that knowing about that you have right here is like an example right here of me, and knowing that whenever I think about this, back whenever I was in school those couple years ago, that I'm like, that I see my name on my desk, and I would usually write my name on the paper, but then I'm like wondering that usually that the mail or the documents are not really in my name, but I guess like they usually say though, that whenever you're growing up, whenever you become willing to take responsibility of your own priorities, is basically that knowing that I'm like, that's like what you call is like a big I guess if you kind of call it like a challenge, to where that it's you kind of seen maybe one of the use another phrase other than like maybe the big picture, but on their hand that, like if most of us can remember that, yeah, whenever we turn in an assignment, if it's going to be in the classroom or something like that, or if it's going to be, maybe whenever we were much younger, that yeah, we that if it's going to be things that more likely kids more likely want to know, like yeah, that nowadays that they have it to where yeah, you have to be 18 or older a lot of times to do a number of things. But let's just say that maybe to buy a pack of maybe to buy maybe candy or something like that. I mean, I don't know what all the rules are nowadays with most places, but let's just say that if you were to go into the candy store and then they ask like yeah, that for most kids, if you're going in there and buying candy and then they're like that yeah, that, and then the next thing you know it's like that they if you're under the age of 15, they're more likely that they may still ask, maybe for a little bit of feedback as well about what you think about going into the store and buying a Hallmark card, or if it's going to be anything such as candy or chocolates or anything like that. But I think nowadays that they may have passed a rule to where that most shoppers, that they would need to be at least 18 years of age or older just to be able to do a number. So it's like if anybody were wondering that, I'm like, yeah, that you go in there, I'm like, yeah, well, that let's just say that if there's a situation to where a child under the age of 14, that they go ahead and if they have money to go ahead and buy something or to take care of something, but then knowing about we have to have an adult here to be able to sign and date the forms. And I'm sure that situation has happened before to where anybody that like yeah, that that yeah, I don't know what all the rules are, but knowing about, I'm like that yeah, that when parents or whoever, that if they're going to have their kids pass a message or deliver a letter or something like that. But I'm sure that they have it to where the rules are that knowing about that an adult has to sign the form. But I guess the whole purpose about this activity right here is talking about is like that there was a time to whenever that yeah, that your name was not provided on some certain documents such as the bills or anything like that, or any forms, tax forms or anything like that, and until all of a sudden maybe 15 years later, then you're seeing all this stuff, such as I'm sure I'd tell anybody that I'm like I'm talking about that if it's going to be taking care of bills and then taking care of tax forms, and as well as maybe insurance plans, those type of documents, and as well as if it's going to be anything that's going to be related to maybe doctor's visits, or it's like insurance, whichever, that that more likely they would more likely use a name and a signature. And I could probably say that I'm like yeah, a lot of times that names are more likely say case sensitive to where that like just any online security, which I know that kids who are younger than the age of 15, that they say that that something that more likely that would not be in their name only. And just like an automobile, that anybody say that yeah, any children under the age of maybe 15, it's like, well, that's knowing about that if they're gonna have they maybe want to have their own bank account, or they want to go ahead and they're going to want something such as they're going to want to, that they would like to have their experience to where that yeah, having to manage their mortgage payments or property tax or anything like that. And just thinking about that yeah, that we may say that yeah, well, one of the reasons maybe some kids that may say that we want to we actually it's actually now known about. I'm like yeah, that your name was announced on the classroom school board. Is it that it was related to something about who earned the most gold stars out of that first quarter of the year in the classroom, and knowing about that their name was on the bulletin board because they passed the test, and they earned so many stars in the classroom, and then they went ahead, and got an A on the project, something like that. So in a lot of ways, there may be a number of reasons to why it's like kids do what they do. It's like knowing about, I'm like, yeah, that they're willing to take the responsibility. I'm like, yeah, that hey, I'm gonna be willing to help you pay for this, or I want to be willing, I want to get some experience to where what's it like to deliver a letter, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure that there will be plenty of opportunities, I'm sure, for like any kids that want to know. I'm like, yeah, you want to have experience about, yeah, making the telephone call or whichever it is. But on the other hand, and knowing about, I'm like, for how well it's handled, knowing about that, I'm sure that they say that usually a lot of times you have to be at least 18 or older to do a number of things, and one of those is like for making a phone call or paying a bill, et cetera, et cetera. And knowing about that, the whole purpose about you have right here is the signatures right here. With the signature, like I say, you call it like an autograph. And a lot of times that those applications, they say that please use black or blue ink. So in a lot of ways, it's like wondering what exactly does that mean? Such as please use blue or black ink, and like, well, if you need to, go ahead and use the pens or pencils that are provided on the desk. It's like and I'm sure that we may have had that experience to where if we go out and vote, and then that they ask you to use a certain type of pen, or complete an application. And I'm thinking that most of those applications will more likely ask to use black ink, but just knowing about Mike, yeah, exactly. What does usually what do the prints and then the signatures usually look like whenever they run it through the machine? And I'm thinking it may look something like this, or maybe it looks just a little bit blurry also, that whenever they run it through the machine, that they say that for ways of how something needs to be completed. And I'm thinking that either that so that the machines or the computer systems will be able to recognize the signature, or something like that. So it's like for how it's converted to into their systems, that type of stuff. So knowing about the basic rules and knowing about Mike, yeah, that well, please do not use your own pens. Please do not use pencil. Please, like, well, I tell you one thing. Do you want a signature? Do you want a name or not? But on the hand, the way I think about though is most of the time it's like with signatures though. Signatures or autographs. It's knowing about yeah, sign and date them, and then all of a sudden it's like yeah, that that for today, like being November the 18th, and like yeah, and then some people that may decide to go ahead and maybe put the 20th, because it's like well, what if the mail may get a little bit behind this week due to the holidays, or whichever it is. But in a lot of ways, the way I think about it, though, is like for signatures and autographs plus, is that I encourage anybody is like to where that yeah, a name, I guess, is not just a name. It's like that they say that there's like what you call a number of things, a number of actions that more likely that could take place, such as that that this is basically the type of sources. The type of sources I'm talking about are like what you say like the ones I'm thinking about are like whenever we sign a form, that knowing about if it's going to be anything such as an insurance plan or maybe contract or anything like that, that basically that knowing about like yeah, that they a lot of times they don't need to see if they need to see a birth certificate, but the things that more likely that we could probably think about that more likely that could be like say types of evidence to where that yeah, that the after you sign a form, after they ask you to sign a form or something like that, just to start a job or maybe to apply for something, if it's Social Security benefits or anything like that, is that retirement, that things that more likely that they could ask for as well. And one of those could be maybe a driver's license. And I'm sure that that they Social Security or is like if it's going to be like in any other sources of information, more likely that they may ask for. And the things that more likely that maybe that they say that would be kept confidential a lot of times. It's like knowing about that they would more likely usually ask for information, for that, such as that, that they may, if anything, that they'll probably say that please do not provide it on the application, that you make sure that it's handled confidential, is that any information that they say that more likely that is kept confidential is that it would not be asked for on this part of the application, except, it would be processed separately. But anyway, just knowing about, how the information is handled especially, but just knowing about, I'm like, that it goes by the question to where that I'm like, really, that signatures, and then as well as autographs, and then maybe names. It's like, do all of those need to be, say, available? Like, anybody's like, nowadays that even with the mobile amps that that you can actually retrieve copies of papers about if it's going to be a lease, or if it's going to be anything such as property tax, or purchase on a product, insurance plans, those type of things. And a lot of times it just seems like I can maybe go on a list between maybe 1 and maybe 45, to where a lot of things that I see nowadays compared to when I was about 15 years of age. And one of those things is like that maybe once or twice, maybe a few times a year, that I'll more likely see any examples of greeting cards or something like that, but Happy New Year or something like that, or maybe Happy Valentine's Day, Merry Christmas, or if it's it's like that, nice to see you or something like that, any type of cards. And I could say that I'm like, any type of surprises that we're like that we get is, and I'm sure most of us would likely know that I'm like, back whenever any kids who are around the age of 15 would maybe know exactly about that. Well, what about taxes, that any tax refunds or anything like that? Is that whenever we're over the age of 18, a lot of things that maybe some new things that more likely that we start seeing that back whenever we were in kindergarten, a lot of times, and a lot of things that we more likely that we would see too. So like, my name is on the desk, and then as well as, your friends call you, by this name, and the teachers know you by this, and then, you get in groups and stuff like that, whenever you're in the classroom. So a lot of things I can still remember whenever I was in kindergarten, and like, I'm like, my name was only used, for that certain purpose. And one of those is like, for, how well do the students know you as, in class. And now it seems like for being an adult that, that, you got to take care of your mail, you got to take care of your bills, you got to take care of your taxes, you got to take care of, doing chores around the house, et cetera, et cetera. So, in a lot of ways that I'm like, that once upon a time, that, before I even knew, it's like, what's, if there's any bills, such as, student loans, or if, any loans, or if it's going to be, anything such as, property tax, or if it's going to be, insurance plans, bill, renewals, or anything like that, anything related to a driver's license. And I'm sure that anybody like thinking about, how old were we whenever we were first introduced to the student ID? Because I don't know, have student IDs always been around? And more likely that might be a question to where I'm sure maybe some students will maybe ask. It's like, well, you need a student ID, just to be able to get into maybe the library, or you're trying to get into the library and they ask you for, please present an ID. Like, well, what's an ID? Like, and well, and then that's given to you. And then whenever you first start going to school, which I'm sure that, I don't know about between kindergarten and third grade, if most of us can remember about it, if we were issued, if we were given any kind of student ID, any type of school ID, that for what grade we're in, and I know that back whenever I was going, like that would have been about back in 1989, and I'm like, that they any student ID were about maybe the size of this paper here. I'm like that, that has your picture on there, and then knowing, like, for what grade you're in, that type of stuff. But they didn't really have, a piece of paper, measured at about 8 by 5 inches, something like that, length and width. But on the other hand, that any other type of ID, that knowing that I can remember going into the library a couple times, and I'm sure it's happened to most of us, to where they, yeah, if you got past due library book, well, where is it? Like, well, it's at home, or oh well, I think I have it, or actually it's in the classroom or something. So I'm sure most of us have had our experience to where that, whenever we check a book out at the library, whenever we were in the fifth grade, it was that and I'm thinking that, I don't know if that was maybe the first time that that they were calling your name, that if you have a past due library book from the library, and knowing about, I'm like, whenever you check out a library, that whenever students check out a library book, that a lot of times, by whose name is it under? And if I can remember right, that I guess they may say it works just a little bit different at the library, because in the library that if you're a student there, that they don't really they have it, you don't even need an account there, etc., etc. But let's just say the story purpose about is that whenever you check out a book at the library, then it's like, that it's pretty much still in your name as well until you bring it back. But other times it's like, you check out a book at the library, and then that, it's like that they say that, it's, 5 days to read it, take it home and read it, and then bring it back. And other times it's like, well, where's the library book? It's past due. So in a lot of ways, that the way I think about it, that I can remember whenever I was much younger that had that experience, and I'm sure maybe not everybody, but some of us here that more like would say that you check out a book at the library, and thinking about that you've had your experience with that, about whenever it's past due, that you finally find it and you bring it back, and et cetera, and then 11 years later, then you'll finally get the experience to what it's like to be able to get a bill in the mail or anything in the mail, and just thinking about for whatever that requires, a signature, an autograph, and like, that I'm right, what you call it right now, kind of seeing, the real big picture. The real big picture would more likely be, it's like, that, signatures, though, that they are just not just names. They are just not just names. They are basically that. Ways of communicating, as well as knowing about them. Like if you be going to a meeting, et cetera, et cetera. But the way I'll think about though is that for like if it's going to be like imprinted in like a type of font, like type of language or anything like that. Right there's my name, as long as it says the signatures though. That whenever we turn the age of 18, is that we start kind of getting more experience as knowing about if we're able to handle that. And then one of the top jobs more likely would be, it's like, knowing about, for, the autographs, that knowing about, like, we may have enjoyed those years to where that our names were being on the announcements board, to where that, that somebody was called, for after they passed a test or something like that. And I'm sure any students will more likely say that, that they are more likely looking forward to their grades going up compared to knowing about them, like, for whenever they're ready to graduate, et cetera, as well as often getting jobs as well. But so far knowing about them, like, for names, about names to be used for that certain purpose. One of those certain purposes is basically knowing for how it's managed as well. Is that it's like, don't sign something like until you read it thoroughly, and as well as for our experience to where what it's like to be able to have our names that available, and for how it's used, that type of stuff, and knowing for how it's managed as well. That knowing about like that we may have heard our names a number of times before, and thinking about whenever we have something in our name, that a lot of times if it's going to be school papers or anything like that, and like knowing about them, like, really, who I am, I come to school every day, I don't have to put my name on all, on this or that, that type of stuff. But on the other hand, the way I think about though is that knowing about that the whole purpose about signatures though, with signatures and autographs plus, is for how it's managed. It's like for SAP that for me pulling up any type of files or anything like that, is knowing that if it's going to be like whenever we were kids and from whenever we're adults, is that some they may say that that's a different story, but the story I'm talking about is basically that knowing that I'm like, yeah, you kind of had the experience with it. Well, what are you going to do? Like, well, I'm going to try to manage it properly. One of those proper ways is knowing about, work hard, to find out more information and use it respectfully. But other than that, like I talk about here, it's like the names and signatures plus any color activity. It's like what the coloring is that knowing about, I'm like, exactly about, for most time with names and this, SAP files and basically for like any type of PDF files is that knowing about, I'm like, if anybody were wondering that a lot of times that they, just get started with something such as, going to, if it's going to be your classes or a job or anything like that, and thinking about, for qualified, is that, most of the time that, just knowing that what does qualified basically mean, it's basically means it's like, yeah, that, after you get into this level, after you score a maximum of 80 or so % on a test or on a grade report, etc. You could be qualified for this and that. You could be qualified for for 30% more points or something like that. So a lot of the ways that knowing about, I'm like, yeah, exactly. For when we are an adult, it's like for most grown-ups, is that yeah, be qualified for a lot of things. Whenever it's like talk about to be able to be entered into, which says like the adult world, and knowing about, I'm like, yeah. And, anybody who's over the age of 25 that maybe could be qualified for a number of things. But one of those things more likely could be, it's like, yeah, that, of knowing about the understanding and an important responsibility of how to handle it as well. It's like one of those is like for signatures, but other than that, like I talk about, say for SAP, it's like PDF, you say color activity.